Toxic Positivity by Timothy Cain. Cain on Games, Toxic Positivity. We're gonna look at this. I actually completely forgot what this was about. I added it like months ago and I haven't watched it. Was this around the time with Concord? Anyway, we're going in. We're going in. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Every little bit of support that you give me greatly matters. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're going in.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about toxic positivity. And I really want to talk about this. I put it off for a while. It seems weird to be talking about it now with all the negativity.
Interesting. Well, my issue is like, right? Grew up. I grew up in a time where this just slowly started seeping into society. Right? This is on games. I think I remember this was on games, but in general, it is almost a deadly sin to point out something negative nowadays, right? Everything has to be in a shielded bubble. You can't say anything. You can't say anything negative, right? We have body positivity, which has been turned into like this right? You cannot point out a flaw, a deadly flaw, right? On someone's like on a person, right? You're gonna get lynched and thrown rocks at you, right? If you straight up say, "Hey, what you're doing is killing you," right? We have that side. Criticism is also something that people nowadays cannot handle. We refrain from like even pointing out negative stuff as like from a future teacher's perspective, even there. And I think it's kind of damaging us because it sets us up for us to not being able to handle when things aren't going the way they're supposed to the point where like, yeah, just ignore the problem, just always stay positive. I know people that have this attitude. They will just positive away a very big problem that will be detrimental if they do not fix it. Well, we have the same with games. According to insiders at Sony, they completely ignored the fact that Concord was not doing well. They kept like being positive. You couldn't say anything bad. Apparently that's the case, but whatever.
In the world, but this channel is almost 3 years old, and there's always been a bunch of negativity in the world, and it doesn't seem to be going away. And I think this topic is important, and I'm going to say the word. I think it's very nuanced, which is why I kept putting it off. I know if I start talking about toxic positivity, people are going to think I'm talking about a particular game or developer or publisher. Can't stop that. By the way, 99% of those comments are wrong. Oh, Tim's thinking about this. And I think some of them are joking, but who can tell? Anyway, let's talk about what I consider to be toxic positivity. That's when you're so overly positive that you ignore all the negatives in something. You can only see that it's 100% good.
I feel like I have that a lot with fans of games as well though, right? If I want to point out one fandom that does that, it's the Pokemon fandom, right? Pokemon fans are like that. Like you could literally, as hard as it is, you could put literal shit on their plate, sprinkle Pokemon on it, and they'd eat it up and thank you for it as well. The way the games are now is atrocious. They're not running well, they don't look well. Other monster tamers are mechanically much further ahead. Like there are things being done here, and like I feel like, right, Pokemon fans, I feel like the fans can do that quite a lot, can damage that quite a lot when they will just keep ignoring obvious issues because hey, right, the excuse, hey, it's for kids. It's like I've hear that a lot, right? For stuff like when something is incredibly terrible, right? But they don't want to admit it, so they keep being positive about it. Or it's for kids. I'm of the opinion that children deserve good stories. Maybe you are too, but maybe you aren't. But I believe that children deserve great stories as well. And nowadays, I can barely show kid stuff too. Probably not really show that. I have to show stuff, older stuff from my childhood, as it is higher quality.
I see this a lot online where people are like, "This game is the best game ever in the entire world," and this TV show, it's the best TV show ever made, and it's 10 out of 10, and it's brilliant, and all this. They never, things can't just be good; they have to be great, and this can lead to a lot of issues. But to be clear, this is not me talking about.
The thing is, what this does is, if you gas it up all the time, right, it gives the developers the impression that it is loved. They will ignore obvious issues, and those obvious issues will follow into sequels, other future games, what, so on and so forth. I've done a lot with journalists, right? Journalists really don't want to call something terrible, right? They will use like somewhat almost neutral language.
Optimism. When I did my video on overanalyzing, people thought I was talking about analyzing, and that over was doing a lot of heavy lifting in that video. I was talking about overanalyzing, analyzing to the point where now you don't even enjoy what you're looking at anymore. In this case, I'm talking about being so optimistic that you're now toxically positive and ignoring anything going wrong. It's that dog sitting in a room and everything's fine, even though everything's on fire. It's funny that I'd be talking about this because I did a video on me being naive and optimistic, and I am. In fact, I've had a producer that I've known for a long time.
I have the exact opposite. I'm too negative. Like I'm just too negative. When it comes to things, I'm just too negative. I'm never ever really like positive about anything. I have the opposite. Huh? Interesting.
And I respect really well. He has said to me multiple times, "This person, he's done this thing before. Why is him doing it again surprising to you?" And I'm like, I'm going to give you a couple examples, a game one and a non-game one, to explain what I mean. The game example, I used to attend a weekly meeting that summarized everything that was in development at the company I was at. It was a very high-end meeting. You had to have at least the word director in your name or like run the studio. This meeting was always just torrentially positive. This is going great. The docs are great. The team is great. Everything was always great. Then 1 week rolled around and a project was canceled and the director for that project was not there. I asked what happened because I said, I don't understand. Nobody said anything. So I raised my hand and said, I don't understand. Every week for the last year, everything's been going great on that project. And now it's canceled? I do not understand. Could somebody explain this to me? Because I have to admit, I'm looking at all the other project updates here with an eye going, are they really great? I was told by somebody above me this would be discussed later. Surprise. Spoiler alert, it was never discussed again. That's toxic positivity. If everything is great because nothing negative is ever discussed, then first of all, things aren't so great. And second,
nothing is great. You're just running away from your problems. That's what it is. It's running away from problems. I wonder if they had that same issue for High Guard.
And it won't ever be great because if you don't fix the problems, they're just going to grow and grow while you ignore them until finally things.
I think a great example of a game not just catching itself again, right? But absolutely recovering from, right? Because I feel like, honestly, from like when No Man's Sky released, because that's the example that I'm using here. When No Man's Sky like dropped, I could tell how the developers were like really overestimating what they had there, right? And it wasn't that good. But look at No Man's Sky now. That, ladies and gentlemen, that is a video game, right? That deserves the title video game. That is a game. Honestly, if I would say this is a game that deserves to definitely be used as the proper example on how to have a comeback when you release a this is what I would hope developers nowadays would do when they release a underwhelming product. that they update the game, the shit out of the game to make it the game that they wanted to make, right? A lot of those don't do that, right? A lot of those don't do that. And I wonder if No Man's Sky had the same issue where like they were so optimistic and so positive about the success that they just completely hit the like lost the plot.
Just have to be canceled. That project that got canceled, I think it easily could have been saved. But it wasn't, because the problems were ignored until it was too late to do anything but cancel it. But here's a real life example. I have a friend, very happy, very fun, outgoing, very active online. And a bear, which is a member of the community I'm in, of bearded gentlemen of a certain girth, zoftigness, to speak. Online, he was all about body positivity, and he was overweight. But then he had a health scare. He was in his 40s. He had a very, very scary health evaluation at his doctor, and he was told, you need to lose weight or this is going to become catastrophic. Well, he started eating better, he went to the gym, and he got into really good shape, and his numbers all got better. And his doctor was like, this is great. And he documented it because he puts his whole life online. And he got slammed just by a few people, but they were very vocal about it.
Yep. A great example is Lizzo. Lizzo lost an incredible amount of weight, and she was slammed online by people because she did something for her health. Like they betrayed her, right? In other words, these people wanted to keep her fat because she looked like them, and it didn't make them feel bad. It is kind of insane, right? Just look at all the big fat positivity influencers. They're like a large portion of that when they originally started out, they're dead. These people are gone. They're no longer with us because of their own delusion, but also because of the delusion of people in their comment section saying how good they look, how great they're doing, and like how beautiful they are. No, you're not beautiful. You're slowly taking your own life, and you don't realize it. Yeah. Yeah.
About no longer being body positive, that he was shaming people who were still overweight by getting into good shape to avoid.
I also don't think that body positivity should be for people that get fat. That is a hot take, but I think it should be for people that are disabled, have an illness, scars. That's it. That's it. I think that's it. If there's still another category that is not their fault, right? Illness also falls mental illness, right? But outside of that, I don't think that this should be used for like, right. You don't need to hate yourself for being overweight, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But we need to stand here and evaluate the reality. We as humans, as society, are getting fatter and fatter, and that will have consequences, right? It makes healthcare more expensive. It puts stress on healthcare. It puts stress on the public. It puts stress on others, people around you as well, right? That's something that needs to be mentioned.
Dying. And here's the weird thing. The ones shaming him were the ones that were actually being body shaming. If you shame someone for being in really good shape, how's that different from shaming someone who's really overweight? And what was weird in his case is he really had a strong medical, defined, objective reason for trying to lose that weight and keep it off.
It's also like, what do we define as a body shaming, right? Telling somebody when somebody makes like a video about how great they look and how healthy they are while doing something that's absolutely unhealthy, and you point that out, is that shaming? I would say not. Right? I would argue that's not shaming.
And people were shaming him for doing it, and my mind just did not understand. And a mutual friend of ours said, that's toxic positivity. And I'm like, oh, I get it. And by the way, this happens a lot. This happens a lot in all kinds of things. No one ever wants to discuss problems. And they don't want to discuss them for various reasons. One, no one wants to be the negative person in the room. You're always negative. You're always bringing up problems. Because if you're the one who's always doing that, eventually you might start being ignored and seen as negative. But also you might be blamed for the reason things are going wrong. And I've seen that happen. This is not new. I've seen this happen before. I've mentioned on here that I saw.
I will absolutely point out when something is wrong. I will absolutely, and if that bothers people, at least I can say I tried, right? At least I can say I tried to fix something. That's all, right? I'm not responsible how others. I'm only responsible for what I feel, and when I feel like satisfied with what I said, I don't care what other people say. I don't give much of a shit.
Producer yelling at a QA lead for finding a bug. And at first I thought he was saying, well, why are you finding this now? But he was just mad the bug was found. That's the QA person's job. How could you be mad at that? Look, at some point in making a game, you need to look at everything with a very clear perspective, especially if you're the director. You can't be too negative, but you also can't be too positive because you have to fix.
Speaking on bugs, I think that you should do, as a game developer, should do as much and the most possible to eliminate almost all and every bugs that you find. That you can find. Not fix the bugs once you've already released the game. That's going to tank your reputation as a developer. Fix the bugs. Fix all the bugs that you can find. And then if you find something afterwards, you can still release patches.
Things that can be fixed. I've talked about the things I focus on: crash bugs, builds that can't finish the game. If a player innocently makes a build and then gets to the end boss and there's no way that build can kill that boss, this is annoying. Frame rate is something a lot of people put up there. They're graphics programmers who that's what they devote their specialty to, is getting the frame rate fixed. A lot of people will say I can't play a game with below a certain frame rate. A lot of consoles have as part of their I always see, I forget names all the time. There's a thing you have to meet. There's a specification you have to meet. They have minimum frame rate as part of that. And then there are things you can't fix, and this is why you have to have that, be able to see the negative things. Some things can't be fixed, but you can minimize the negative effect on the game. Maybe you have an attribute that's not used enough, and you discover that it's not used enough. You can go to your scripters and go, hey, there are a couple more places we could use this skill or this attribute to bring it in par with the other ones. Or maybe everything has a point system attached to it. So you're like, this one isn't used as much, so let's make it cheaper. It's cheaper to buy that attribute because it's not as useful in the game. It does have its uses, but not much, so it's cheap to get. Or make it a perk. Now it's completely optional and people don't have to buy it. And instead of having a lot of continuous levels, like maybe your attributes go to 10 or 20, it just has 3. I talked about that's a possibility for doing that with luck if I were to redo Fallout. Instead of having luck be an attribute and having to come up with what luck values 1 to 10 are, make 3 levels of luck as a perk. And each perk is a major noticeable change in how the player's luck affects his combat and non-combat skills. So there are ways you can look at something and go, that's a problem, and I can fix it. I can't get rid of it, but I can make it better. Basically what I'm saying here is being overly positive can be just as bad as being overly negative. And in a
I think, so here's a hot take. I also think that developers should not shy away from delaying a game. That is a hot take, I know. And, right, that would piss off people. But as a wise man once said, a delayed game is eventually good. But if you release a bad game, it likely is a forever bad, right? And I think for a lot of games, yeah, fine, we have online functions now where we can update games on the go, right? At this point, right? It's not really a big a deal, but it is. Because the reputation a game has on a release, it will probably have that reputation for the rest of its life cycle. Again, the only exception that I can find personally is No Man's Sky. That's the only one that I can find That is an exception to that rule. That's it.
Way, they're the same thing. They're focusing entirely on one thing and completely ignoring the other. And a director cannot do that. You cannot afford to do that if you're a game director. You have to have a critical eye. Is this good enough? Does this fit into the game? Artistically, thematically. Someone has to decide that, and it's the game.
But I think it's also my opinion that a lot of game developers aren't even gamers, right? Like you look at the team that is running Bungie, you look at the team, right? You look at the team that's running Destiny too, right? You look at the team that runs Halo Studios, and you're like, I can guarantee you, barely any of these people have played Halo. Like, what's going on there? Like, we have plenty of developer teams that aren't really like. It looks like there aren't like there was the stream out there of that Diablo 4 developer being surprised about the game, and I'm like, buddy, you were supposed to play this game as well, right? It is your game. You should know things about it.
Director. And the problem here is being 100% positive will not lead you to a good game or a good life. So that's my thoughts on toxic positivity.
Yeah, I agree with him. I agree with him. Obviously, right? He is right. He's 100% right, actually, right? He's 100% right. It's just that how do we get rid of that culture? People are too afraid to be confronted with negativity. Where does that come from, and what issue? How do we fix this, right? Because we have this in all places of society. You cannot be met with negativity. That completely just discombobulates people's lives and perception, right? If you meet them, for example, with a even different opinion, right? It is crazy out here. Anyway, this is an interesting video. Yeah, that was fun. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye bye.